All right, go ahead and get out this handout right here. We're going to go over a couple examples first. So this is lab number 4 for equine nutrition. So we're going to look at hay quality evaluation. So you have received a little bit of a background in terms of these factors and kind of this point system in the lecture presentation. And so we're actually going to go look at a sample together to to evaluate in terms of the quality of hay. And so we're going to be looking at alfalfa example here. And so this is the alfalfa right here. And so the first thing that we're going to be looking at is the stage of maturity. And so again, the stage of maturity and leafiness are the two most important qualities. And then secondary is going to be color, odor, softness. And then we're going to make any discounts regarding any weeds or trash that might be found in the actual sample. And so with this one here, we're looking at stage of maturity when visually assessed. We're trying to estimate the average maturity of the bale, not of the most mature stock in the bale. So we're just kind of taking an average. So we're considering the maturity of all the species in a mixed hay. This one we're just looking specifically at an alfalfa. So, and then this is just one standard flake that we have here, but hopefully it'll give us representation in terms of overall stage of maturity at harvest. And so just looking at this, some characteristics to look at, and another resource is that the printed guide that I provided for you in terms of the different stages of alfalfa. It was looking at early vegetation all the way through budding, through early flower, through the late flower. And so as we can see here, we do have quite a few flowers already. So this has already gone into essentially, I would say, late bloom. So this is definitely at a late bloom stage here because there's several flowers consistently throughout this flake right here. Okay, and I would say that it's greater than 50%, and 50% would be basically mid-bloom, so between early and late bloom. So we have quite a few blooms already in this sample right here, and again, this is just a representative, generic representation of the bale itself. So I would say that this is in a late bloom stage. Potentially maybe even at a mid-bloom, because again it's 50%. I would say it's definitely over 50%, maybe even 75% of the bale itself. But I would put it more at the higher end. So I would actually give this a score of say maybe a 19. Okay, so I'd give it kind of a 19 in terms of the actual stage. So again, you have a reference of 10 to 19. I'd give it the higher end of the points to increase the quality value of that. The next one is going to be the leaf to stem ratio, and what we're looking for here is higher leafiness rather than with a lot of attached leaves, rather than something that's more stemmy. And so if I was just to take up a piece right here and look at it, and so leaves are kind of attached there. I'll look up something different here. Kind of a little bit of shatteredness here. Leaf components here. I'm going to go over here to the side. I've opened this bale up a little bit to kind of look at it. And if we kind of just look at it on average, okay, we have kind of partial intactness of the leaves and to the stems itself. And so I would put this one right here. I would say it does have a high leafiness, but most are detached. So I would give it kind of like anywhere, kind of midline. I'd give it a 24 in terms of points. Color is going to certainly be important, not as high on the scoring scale as the maturity or the leafiness, because again that's going to dictate in terms of the nutrient value of the feed. Again, you're going to have higher amounts of proteins, minerals, soluble carbohydrates in the leaf compared to the fiber content in the stem itself, and then stage of maturity obviously is going to dictate the composition of those. The older the plant, obviously the more higher the fiber content. Okay. In terms of the color, I would say that this is a bright green, so I'd give it a full 14, 15 points because it's a good, nice green color for this harvest. And how they actually stored it or harvested it, and then allowed it to sun cure, and then packaged it. Odor, this is pretty much very clean in terms of the odor. So it doesn't smell dusty at all. There's no dust that's coming out when I pulled this apart. So I would say I'd give this a high level. I'd give it 15. In terms of softness, and this is where we just kind of grab the hay, because this is important. This is how the horse is going to grab it into its mouth and chew it. And so if there's a lot of coarseness, that can affect palatability and consumption. So I'd say for the most part, and that really goes hand in hand in terms of softness with the leaf to stem ratio. So obviously the more leafy, the more soft. This one I would say it's kind of soft between slightly harsh, so I'd kind of give it maybe at the highest a 7, lowest maybe a 6. Okay. And then trash and weed, so let's see, I think we looked at the sample at the previous, when we talked about lab number 3, so we've got basically an old weed branch there. But for the most part, I got just a couple of these older branches kind of in here that are not part of the actual alfalfa, but for the most part, it's pretty much free of any weeds, from the best that I can tell. I don't see any weeds in this sample at all, just a couple small little breaks of underline. And I would expect this to be maybe a second cutting crop right here, or a first cutting from a introduced species that's very well cultivated. Okay, so in terms of, I would say that I'd give it a 0. I don't see anything that would indicate that there's weeds in this product here. At the lowest deduction, I'd give it a -1. Okay, so let's look at these, kind of tally these up. So for the first category, we gave this a 19. For the second category, leaf to stem ratio, we gave it a 24. And then we gave it a 15, and then odor 15, softness, we're going to give it a 7, and then 0 for trash and weeds. So let's add those all up and see what we get. So let me get my calculator out real quick.